Today, we're talking about adolescence, and we're calling it the Great Rewiring for a really good reason. Because what happens in the brain and the body during these years, it's not just some awkward phase. It's a fundamental system overhaul from the ground up.
So what really happens during the teenage years? Is it all just hormones and crazy mood swings? We all have this picture of the classic teenager, right? The rebellion, the drama. But is that the whole story? Turns out it's not even close. There's a much deeper, way more complex process of rewiring happening under the hood. So let's get into it.
Okay, so to make sure we're all on the same page, let's start with a clear definition. The World Health Organization frames adolescence as that decade from age 10 to 19. Think about that, a full decade. It's not just about becoming a teenager, it's this fundamental bridge you cross from childhood to adulthood, and it involves every single part of a person. And that transition really kicks off with the changes you can see. So let's jump into part one, the physical revolution. This is all about the biological transformation that unfolds on a very specific timeline.
Now, puberty is definitely not a one-size-fits-all experience. It unfolds on a pretty different schedule for boys and girls. Girls typically get a head start, beginning the process a year or two earlier, with their major landmark being menarche. For boys, it's spermarchy. Even the growth spurt is different. Boys peak about 2 years later, but they tend to grow a little faster. By the late teens, though, this intense physical transformation is mostly complete for everybody.
But while the body is transforming on the outside, the most critical work is happening completely out of sight. This brings us to part two, the brain under construction. This is the real source of the Great Rewiring.
During adolescence, the brain's cognitive abilities just take a massive leap forward. Thinking gets faster, memory sharpens, and organizational skills get a serious upgrade. But the true game changer here is metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. I mean, whoa! This is the dawn of self-awareness and abstract thought. It's what allows teens to start grappling with huge ideas like justice and identity for the very first time.
And this brain development has some, let's say, noticeable behavioral effects. A big one is a spike in sensation seeking. As the brain's reward system matures, it just craves new stimuli and new experiences. And this drive peaks around age 16 for females and a little later at 19 for males. Now, this is so important. This isn't a character flaw, it's a feature of the rewiring process.
So why all the risk-taking? Well, the crucial thing to get is this mismatch in development. Think of it like a car. The teenage brain has this supercharged engine. That's the reward system, seeking thrills and social rewards. But the braking system, the prefrontal cortex that's in charge of impulse control and long-term planning, yeah, that's still being installed. That gap between the gas pedal and the brakes explains so much about teenage behavior.
Now, this physical and cognitive rewiring doesn't happen in a bubble. It dramatically reshapes a teenager's inner world, leading them straight into part three, the social and emotional maze.
You know, this period of intense change creates a lot of vulnerability. This number is pretty stark. Up to 27% of adolescents face significant mental health challenges. And let's be clear, this is not just teen angst. It's a direct reflection of the immense pressure that this biological and psychological rewiring puts on a young person.
The fact that these challenges are so common means that identifying at-risk teens is absolutely critical. And you can see that specialized screening tools have been developed to help. It just highlights how seriously the clinical world takes this delicate period. But sometimes the risk factors actually follow a very specific chain of events.
In fact, sometimes research can pinpoint a very specific pathway of risk. Let's follow the thread of one particular study that connects the physical changes we talked about with the emotional challenges. It all starts with girls who experience puberty a bit earlier than their peers.
What the study found was a link between early puberty and something called rumination. Rumination is basically getting stuck in a loop of negative thought, just overthinking and dwelling on sad feelings instead of being able to move past them.
And that pattern of rumination is a known risk factor for depression. So you see this clear chain of events. An early physical change can influence a specific thinking style, which in turn elevates mental health risks. It's a really powerful example of how the physical and the mental aspects of this rewiring are deeply, deeply connected.
So what's the ultimate goal of all this change? What's it all for? It's the search for identity. The psychologist Erik Erikson laid out a process where teens move from not really exploring at all to maybe trying on different personas and then ultimately achieving an authentic sense of who they are. This whole search,
This is the core psychological work of the teenage years.
So where does all of this lead? Well, this entire process of construction, of risk-taking, and identity searching, it all points to one single destination: becoming an adult.
This quote really reframes everything. That risk-taking we talked about isn't just a bug in the system, it's a feature. It's the brain's way of practicing. By taking smaller risks, teenagers are literally building and strengthening the neural pathways, those brakes, that they're going to need to navigate much bigger decisions later in life. It's really just learning by doing.
So in the end, adolescence isn't a problem to be fixed. It's a messy, risky, and totally necessary process of construction. And knowing that the brain is literally being rewired, the question for all of us becomes, how can we better support this incredible project while it's unfolding?